Joining me is Dr. David Greenfield. He's the founder and director of the Center for Internet and Technology Addiction, located in West Hartford, Connecticut. He's a psychologist treating patients worldwide for technology addiction. Dr. Greenfield, really great to have you. This is an issue of particular interest to people in my age group. So I think that might be useful first to just start out with, how are we defining technology addiction?
Well, there are two real components in what I call Generation D, which would be anyone in 25 to 30 and under. And these are people that have grown up with digital and internet technology. And addiction really means that you have to meet some pretty serious medical criteria. There has to be some degree of withdrawal when you're not using it, some degree of tolerance, meaning that you're using it more and more, and that there has to be, more importantly, some deleterious or really negative effect in your life that is causing harm, like to your relationships, legal, health, financial status, marriage, work, academic performance. If you don't have one of those, or that combination, then you're probably not addicted. And only a small percentage, based on my research and my work, and I'm saying somewhere in the 4 to 6% range, would really meet that criteria. The rest of us are heavy users or abusers, and I think most of us are guilty of that.
Okay, so then let's figure out a little bit more about that. So some people who we said we were going to be doing this interview with you, they wrote in and they said, listen, my behavior is that at work, as part of my job, I'm on my computer and I'm on my mobile phone and I'm on email basically throughout the day. When I'm not at
Yeah,
work, I'm kind of expected to not be too far out of reach. And when I go to a
yeah,
movie for 2 hours and I have to shut my phone off, I'm definitely wondering and thinking, do I have email?
yeah,
Is there something there? There may not be a
right.
very specific negative effect that's associated, but they say, I definitely feel what
Yeah.
I guess you would qualify as withdrawal. What does that
That,
sound like to you?
that sounds like somebody that I would classify as a heavy user or an abuser, and it's somebody who their technology has reinforced them to classically associate the phone with expected hits of dopamine from positive messages and texts and tweets. So, in other words, our phones, especially our smartphones, because we carry them with us everywhere we go, in a sense, are giant slot machines, or not giant slot machines, they're small slot machines. So, what they're doing is they're doling out these positive reinforcements in the form of communications or information that we find pleasurable. Sometimes they're a text or an email that is something positive. When that happens, the brain secretes some dopamine, which is a pleasure neurotransmitter, which is the same neurotransmitter that's secreted when you do drugs or alcohol or have sex or do other pleasurable activities. What happens is the beeps and buzzes and things that the phone does to let us know that there's a message become conditioned with the expectation that there may be something there for us to look at. So it's sort of like akin to knowing that there's a Christmas package under the tree that hasn't been opened yet, and you just can't wait to open it. The problem with that is that that it is habit forming, and then the technology, in some sense, is controlling you instead of you controlling it. It no longer is a tool. You're the tool for it, as opposed to it being a tool for you.
There are some discussions about so-called addictive personalities, or personalities that that biologically tend more to become addicted to whatever. It could be drugs, it could be gambling, it could be exercise, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Do you find, number one, that if you consider that line of thinking valid, does technology addiction fall under that same umbrella, where there are certain people who just by their very nature are more likely to become addicted to technology?
Well, the answer is yes and no. There really is no such thing as a biological or psychological predisposed person for addiction. Now, that being said, there are certainly people who come from families where there are lots of addictions that have a higher likelihood of becoming addicted. but that's probably because of being exposed environmentally to that to addictive behavior growing up. Uh, as far as technology goes, it's a little more complicated because Generation D, this group of people, 25, 30 and under, have a different relationship with technology than anyone else. They treat technology like my generation would treat a toaster. It is embedded in their culture, in their social life, in the way they socialize, in their daily living. The phone is not really a communication device, it's part of their accessories of their clothing. It's integrated into their lives in such a way that it would be very hard for them to live without. So to answer your question, I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
Well, so I think we follow that there's not there's a different framework maybe for people of a certain age that wouldn't necessarily fall under this paradigm.
Yeah, this is a group that, like, for instance, I see people, I get calls and emails literally from all over the country and elsewhere in the world. And we've got 16 or 17-year-old kids that are gaming too much, or they're looking at porn too much, or whatever. That's different than an issue of somebody who is overusing their phone a little too much to check Facebook all day long. It's like, for instance, Facebook is not something that I tell the parents to get their kids off of, because Facebook is where kids hang out. They hang out virtually. They hang out in cyberspace. That's their social network. And also, texting and tweeting and the technologies of digital communication are really this generation's differentiation point from previous generations. So it's like Generation D's language, loosely speaking, it's the way you guys connect and relate. So some of that is normative, and some of it is integrated into the social structure of this generation. And for me to tell a parent, oh no, the kid should never be on Facebook, would be like me saying, well, the kid should never go out and hang out with his friends. On the other hand, if he's spending 8 or 10 hours a day on Facebook and not doing his schoolwork, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, and then that even goes beyond the specific issue of technology addiction, because we know a lot of the negative effects of kind of living your life through your Facebook friends' status updates, and it shows less satisfaction with your own life and the idea that everyone else is doing more and better things than you. I'm curious, what's your personal kind of technology usage?
Well, I'm talking to you on an HD camera through Skype with my smartphone next to me.
But I mean it more in terms of frequency, and are you checking mail all the time on a mobile phone?
I think it's a fair question. I got interested in, as a doctor, I'm an addictionologist, so my background as a doctor is in the area of addiction. So I was interested in this area to begin with, but I also have a background in technology and electronics. So back in the mid-90s, when the internet started to heat up, I actually noticed my spending an excessive amount of time online. And this is back when we had dial-up, which you probably don't even remember.
So you were spending a lot of time online, but you weren't really getting that much done because the internet was so slow.
Yeah, internet was so slow, and also I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? And there was no content either. We're talking about in its infancy.
Yeah.
So, but nevertheless, it was still very compelling, and that's really what got me curious about. There's something about the interface, the medium of the internet itself, whether you access it on a tablet or a smartphone or a laptop or a computer, that makes it very addictive. And there's certain qualities like disinhibition or dissociation. For instance, everybody loses track of time and space when they're on this technology. So that is what likens it to what I call a digital drug. It has the capacity to alter our mood and consciousness. And so to answer your question about me, I'm absolutely susceptible to it, and I have to manage it. And what I do is I force myself to leave my phone at home, or I'll force myself to leave it in the car if I'm going in to eat, or I'll force myself to push myself offline consciously. If you don't consciously do it, you'll carry that stuff with you everywhere you go, and you will become enslaved by it.
All right, we've been speaking with Dr. David Greenfield. He's the founder and director of the Center for Internet and Technology Addiction in West Hartford, Connecticut. Dr. Greenfield, thanks so much for joining us. Very interesting.